belief. There's a belief we've all been taught, especially those of us raised to be peacemakers. If you're just nice enough, they'll change. They'll see you. They'll soften. And we carry this belief into our relationships thinking maybe, just maybe, if we're kind, patient, understanding, the narcissist in our life will finally get it. But here's the truth. Being nice doesn't change a narcissist. It sustains them. Narcissists don't respond to kindness the way healthy people do. They see it as an opportunity, an opening. It's not interpreted as love or understanding. It's read as permission. Permission to manipulate, to gaslight, to keep taking. And that's where so many of us get stuck, because we're trying to connect with someone who doesn't want connection, they want control. Kindness is one of the most beautiful human traits. It softens edges, heals wounds, opens hearts. It's the language of love, of grace, of dignity. And many of us were raised to believe that kindness is the answer to conflict, pain, and even cruelty. That if we can just love someone hard enough or stay patient long enough, they'll finally see us. They'll finally stop hurting us. But here's the brutal, tender truth. Kindness is powerful, yes, but it is not a cure for abuse. Let me say that again, because some of us need to hear it twice. Kindness does not cure abuse, not emotional abuse, not psychological manipulation, not control disguised as concern, not the cycles of blame, guilt, and gaslighting that so often come with narcissistic behavior. When we bring kindness into a healthy relationship, it grows things, it builds trust, it invites connection. But when we bring kindness into an abusive dynamic, especially with someone who thrives on power, it often becomes a tool they use against us. Your kindness becomes their justification. See, you're overreacting. You're too sensitive. If I was that bad, you wouldn't still be here. Your grace becomes their get out of jail free card. And your compassion becomes the leash they tighten just enough to keep you from walking away. And it's not because kindness is weak, it's because abusers exploit it. Narcissists don't want connection, they want control. They don't respond to kindness with reflection, they respond with strategy. They interpret your forgiveness as forgetfulness. They interpret your empathy as endurance. They interpret your silence as surrender. That doesn't make your kindness wrong, it makes their response dangerous. So here's what we have to unlearn. You are not responsible for someone else's healing, especially if they're the one doing the hurting. You can be a kind person and still say no. You can be a loving person and still walk away. You can be compassionate and still refuse to let someone weaponize your heart against you. Kindness is a gift, but when it's given without boundaries, it becomes a sacrifice. And you don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove your love. You don't have to stay in harm's way to validate your loyalty. You don't have to shrink so someone else can feel big. Kindness is powerful, but you are even more powerful when you learn how to pair kindness with courage, with clarity, with consequence. That's when healing begins. Not when we keep pouring kindness into someone else's broken cup, but when we finally say, this is enough, I deserve better. There's a common temptation to believe that narcissism is just a big misunderstanding, that if we explain ourselves better or communicate more clearly, the narcissist will suddenly get it, that maybe they just don't realize how their words or actions affect us. That if we just try harder, we can break through to the person beneath the hurtful behavior. But the truth is, narcissism is not a misunderstanding. It's not a momentary lapse or a misstep. So it's not a one-time bad day or an isolated incident. Our narcissism is a pattern, a deeply ingrained way of seeing the world, of relating to others, of protecting the self. This pattern shows up again and again, like a script they know by heart. The charm, the manipulation, the grandiosity, the gaslighting, the silent treatment, the blame shifting, the emotional distance wrapped in feigned concern. It's a repeated cycle, not a one-off event. And this pattern isn't just about how they behave towards you, it's how they operate with everyone around them. It's how they survive emotionally, how they keep their fragile sense of self intact by keeping others small, uncertain, and off balance. When you realize narcissism is a pattern, not a mistake, it shifts everything. It means the problem is not you. It means your confusion and hurt are not because you failed to explain or love enough. It means this is not your fault. Understanding that it's a pattern also helps you see something else. It's not going to change just because you want it to. And it's not going to get better with more kindness, more patience, or more explanations. Because this pattern is deeply rooted in fear and self-protection. It's a survival mechanism they built early in life to shield themselves from pain and shame. And while we can have compassion for that, compassion doesn't mean excusing or tolerating harm. Compassion means understanding the why without accepting the what. What is the repeated hurt, the control, the emotional roller coaster. The why is the fear, the emptiness, the fragile ego. But here's the key. While the pattern is theirs, how you respond to it is yours. You can try to fix it and keep getting hurt. Or you can recognize the pattern for what it is and protect your heart accordingly. You can try to rewrite their story, or you can write your own. You can keep hoping for change, or you can create boundaries that demand respect. Recognizing narcissism as a pattern gives you clarity, frees you from confusion. It restores your power, because when you know this isn't a misunderstanding, you stop blaming yourself. You stop explaining yourself. You start choosing yourself. And that is where healing begins. Empathy is one of the most beautiful capacities we have as human beings. It's the ability to step into another person's shoes, to feel their pain, to understand their story, even when it's messy or difficult. Empathy is what connects us. It's what allows us to love deeply, forgive generously, and build bridges across differences. But here's the thing about empathy, it's not a limitless resource. Empathy without boundaries, empathy poured out endlessly without pause or protection can become a kind of self-betrayal. Because when we give empathy without limits, without guarding our own well-being, we risk losing ourselves in someone else's story. We risk sacrificing our own needs, safety, and sanity for the sake of someone who may never truly see us or respect us. This is especially true when we're dealing with someone who doesn't or can't reciprocate that empathy, someone who uses our compassion as a way to control, manipulate, or exploit. You can feel deeply for someone and still say no. You can understand their pain and still protect yourself from their harm. You can hold space for their struggles and still refuse to be their punching bag. Empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal when it asks you to ignore your own pain in order to carry theirs. When it demands you stay silent in the face of disrespect, to forgive what feels unforgivable, or to pretend everything is okay when it clearly is not. It's that quiet voice inside you that says this isn't right, but you override it because you don't want to be seen as uncaring or selfish. It's the part of you that is exhausted, drained, and empty, but you keep giving because you're afraid to lose the connection, even if it's toxic. Boundaries are the way we honor ourselves while still offering empathy. They are the line in the sand that says, I see your pain, but I will not lose my soul trying to fix it for you. They are the act of courage that protects your heart and your dignity. Without boundaries, empathy becomes a trap. It becomes a leash that ties you to dysfunction and harm. It becomes a silent agreement to sacrifice yourself for someone else's emotional chaos. When you set boundaries, you're not turning your back on empathy. You're honoring it. You're saying, I care enough about both of us to hold space safely. You're acknowledging that your well-being matters just as much as theirs. This is not selfish. It is necessary. As true empathy isn't about losing yourself. It's about connecting without sacrificing your integrity. Empathy with boundaries looks like compassion that protects. It looks like love that demands respect. It looks like kindness that refuses to be exploited. And when you practice that kind of empathy, when you combine softness with strength, you reclaim your power. You stop the cycle of self-betrayal. You start to heal. Truth-telling is one of the most radical acts of courage we can engage in, especially when dealing with a narcissist or anyone who thrives on control and illusion. Because here's the reality, narcissists build their world on a fragile foundation of lies, half-truths, and carefully crafted stories. They manipulate facts, rewrite history, and gaslight those around them to maintain power. Their identity depends on the illusions they create, the false narratives that protect their ego and keep others off balance. When you speak your truth, you pull away the curtain. You expose the cracks in the carefully constructed facade. And that, no matter how gentle or kind you are, is deeply disruptive. Truth-telling is not about yelling or blaming. It's not about revenge or humiliation. It's about clarity, about naming what really happened, about refusing to accept distortions as reality. It's about reclaiming your own story from the chaos. When you tell your truth, you give yourself permission to be seen exactly as you are, flaws, fears, and all. You refuse to let the narcissist's version of events overwrite your experience. You affirm your own reality in a world that has tried to deny it. And that changes everything. Because narcissists hate mirrors. They hate anything that reflects their behavior back to them clearly and honestly. Truth-telling holds up that mirror. It forces them to face what they've done, even if only for a moment. It disrupts their control, their manipulation, their power. For you, truth-telling is an act of liberation. It breaks the cycle of confusion, self-doubt, and gaslighting. It helps you rebuild your sense of self-worth and integrity. It creates a foundation where healing can begin. But truth-telling also requires something else, courage. Because when you start speaking your truth, you might face backlash, denial, anger, attempts to silence you. The narcissist may escalate their tactics to keep you quiet or to punish you for breaking the rules of their narrative. This is why truth-telling is not easy. It requires bravery. It requires standing firm in your own experience, even when the world pushes back. And yet, It is the most powerful disruption you have, not because it changes the narcissist, because it rarely does, but because it changes you. It reclaims your power. It restores your voice. It sets a new boundary that says, I will not be erased or silenced. In speaking your truth, you begin to dismantle the lies that have held you captive. You create space for authentic connection with yourself and with others who honor your reality. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: you cannot fix someone who benefits from staying broken. This is especially painful when the person you care about is caught in patterns of narcissism, manipulation, or emotional abuse. We want so desperately to believe that if we love them enough, support them enough, or understand them enough, they will heal, that they will see their own pain, face it, and choose to change. But what if the truth is that they don't want to change? What if, in their brokenness, they actually find something that keeps them stuck, something they hold on to, even unconsciously? And it is, sometimes people stay broken because it serves them, not in the sense that they want to cause harm or be cruel, but because their brokenness is familiar, it's safe, it's a known quantity. Their brokenness gives them control in a twisted way. It lets them avoid responsibility. It justifies their behavior. It shields them from vulnerability. If they were to truly heal, it would mean stepping into the unknown. It would mean losing the story they've built their identity around. It would mean facing uncomfortable truths and making hard changes. Change demands courage, and sometimes that courage is not there. This means that no amount of kindness, patience, or pleading on your part will fix them. No amount of trying to explain, support, or save will break through the pattern. And this is not your failure. It is the reality of human complexity. When someone benefits from staying broken, it's a survival mechanism, not a moral failing. But it's also a barrier that keeps them from growth. Your role is not to fix them. Your role is to protect yourself, to recognize when your efforts are no longer healing but enabling, to understand when your love is becoming a lifeline for their dysfunction instead of a bridge to mutual respect. This is where boundaries become essential. Because boundaries say, I see your pain, I care about your healing, but I will not lose myself in the process. Choosing to step back, to stop trying to fix someone else's brokenness, is an act of radical self-love. It's painful, yes, but it's also freeing. It opens space for your own healing. It allows you to reclaim your time, your energy, your dignity. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to fix someone who benefits from staying broken, you often create the space where change becomes possible. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped enabling the pattern. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot carry the weight of someone else's refusal to grow without breaking yourself. So the greatest gift you can give both to yourself and to others is acceptance. Acceptance that you cannot fix them. Acceptance that change is theirs to choose. An acceptance that you deserve to live whole, healthy, and free. When we're trapped in the cycle of trying to change someone else, especially a narcissist, it's easy to lose sight of the most important truth. The real change always begins with you. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is not arrogance. It is an act of radical courage and self-respect. For too long, you may have put your own needs, your own voice, your own well-being on the back burner, hoping that your love, your patience, or your niceness would eventually shift the other person. But here's the truth. No amount of external effort towards someone else will heal what only you can heal from within. Choosing yourself means showing up for your own pain, acknowledging your wounds, giving yourself permission to feel what you feel without shame or judgment. It means setting boundaries, not because you want to punish others, but because you want to protect your soul. Choosing yourself means reclaiming your time and energy from those who drain it without giving back. It means prioritizing your mental, emotional, and physical health. It means saying no when you need to say no, and yes when it's truly aligned with your values and well-being. This choice is transformational because it shifts the power back to you. You stop living in reaction to someone else's chaos, manipulation, or neglect. You start living proactively for your own peace, your own growth, and your own joy. And when you choose yourself, you model something powerful, not just for the narcissist or toxic person in your life, but for everyone around you. You show what it means to value your worth. You show what it means to demand respect. You show what it means to be brave enough to stand in your own truth. Choosing yourself also means embracing the discomfort that comes with change. It's not easy to walk away from familiar pain or toxic dynamics. It's not easy to confront loneliness or grief when you break free from the old patterns. But that discomfort is the doorway to healing. It's the invitation to grow into the fullest version of yourself. And here's the most beautiful part. When you choose yourself, you don't just change your life. You change your entire relationship to love and connection. You begin to attract people who see you, respect you, and honor your boundaries. You begin to cultivate relationships rooted in authenticity and mutual care. You begin to live a life defined by courage, resilience, and self-compassion. A real change, lasting, meaningful change, starts here. Not with changing the other person, and not with fixing the broken, not with hoping for a different story. It starts with the radical act of choosing you, choosing to be whole, choosing to be free, and choosing to be unapologetically yourself. Being kind and patient won't change a narcissist because kindness, while powerful, isn't a cure for abuse. Narcissism isn't a simple misunderstanding. It's a pattern deeply rooted in fear and control. Offering empathy without boundaries isn't selflessness, it's self-betrayal. And truth-telling, that's the real disruptor, the radical act that cracks the facade and reclaims your story. But the hardest truth of all is this: you cannot fix someone who benefits from staying broken. And the real lasting change doesn't come from trying to change them. It begins with you, with choosing yourself. Choosing yourself means setting boundaries, reclaiming your power, and honoring your worth. It means having the courage to say enough is enough. It means loving yourself fiercely, even when it's hard, even when it means walking away. So if you're standing here today, caught in this struggle, remember this: your kindness is a gift, but your courage is your salvation. Your empathy is a strength, but your boundaries are your armor. Your truth is your power, and choosing yourself is the first step toward freedom. This journey isn't easy. It takes strength to break patterns, to say no, to walk away, to heal, but it's the only way to reclaim your life, your peace, and your joy. Be kind to yourself as you choose you, because when you do, you don't just survive, you thrive.